Hi, I'm Stephanie with Crosscut Sewing, and in this video I'm going to go over some of my favorite tools. Most of these items are what I would recommend for sewing with children. Before you start to sew, you will need to have your supplies ready. You may have some of these things already, or most of them are available at crosscutsewingco.com. So the first thing you're going to need, of course, is a sewing machine, and you'll need to have your power cord, your foot pedal, and it's always good to have your manual handy. The machine we are using is the Everzone Sparrow 25. I love this machine for many reasons, and it's really great for young or new sewers. My favorite features are the speed control, so you can slow down the sewing speed. There is also a needle up-down button, so the needle will only stop in those two positions. It also has a start and stop button, so you can sew without the foot pedal, or if you're sewing with a younger student and they're not stopping in time, you can just push that and it will stop the machine. You will also need some thread and some bobbins. There are lots of different types of thread, but for sewing in a sewing machine, you want to use a good quality thread. You want to make sure that it says universal. I like to use a 50-weight polyester thread like Gutermann. This will go through most machines easily and is strong and smooth. You don't want to use old thread because it's likely to break, or a low quality thread that will leave a lot of lint in your machine. You will also need some empty bobbins. When you purchase thread, it comes on the spool. Sewing machines sew with two threads. One is in the needle and one on the bobbin. We will go over how to wind the bobbin in the next video. Your machine should come with some empty bobbins, and you can always buy more. Your manual will tell you which type work with your machine. You will also need needles. Just like bobbins, your machine will come with a few needles, and I will show you how to change the needles a little later. But just in case you break or bend one, you always want to have some extra machine needles on hand. There are different types of needles for different projects. For most projects, a universal needle is fine. They come in different sizes, but a 70, 80, or 90 size will work for most projects. You will also need to have some hand sewing needles. Sometimes we use these to finish a project, and they are always good to have on hand. Of course, you will need scissors. Scissors are really important. If you're just starting out, you do not have to invest in an expensive pair, but you do want to have a dedicated pair just for fabric. If you use your fabric scissors on paper, it will dull them and make fabric harder to cut. Keep a set on hand for cutting paper and patterns, and a set for fabric. If you are looking to purchase some, look for bent handle scissors. These will help you cut along your table without having to lift up your fabric. For kids, I like these 7-inch bent handle scissors because they're perfect for small hands. I also like to have a set of pinking shears. These scissors will cut with a zigzag edge and are useful in some of my projects. And I always have a small pair of snips near my machine for little thread. You don't want to risk cutting your projects with big scissors on little threads. You will also need some marking tools. There are lots of fabric marking tools. I like to have a friction pen handy. These are regular erasable pens meant for paper, but they will come off of fabric with an iron. I also like to have some type of chalk marking tool. These are handy to mark on dark fabric. They're pencil type, and then there are some that have a wheel with the chalk in them. You will also need some pattern weights. These don't have to be fancy, but having some weights to hold down your pattern are handy to have. You can use washers, you can make some weights, or I've even been known to use my phone. Of course, you will need a seam ripper. Even the most professional seamstress needs one of these. This tool will help take out stitches if we make a mistake, and I will show you how to use it in a future video. Of course, you will need to have an iron and an ironing board or a mat. You do not need to have an expensive iron. Any iron will work. My preference for sewing with children is this cordless iron. It's easy for them to manipulate, and there isn't a cord to get caught on the ironing board. It has low, medium, and high settings, and it has steam and spray. It heats when it's on the dock, so when it's off the dock, it starts to lose heat. It will have plenty to press your project, but if it was left on the ironing board, it's less likely to scorch. It also has an automatic shutoff, and the dock has a retractable cord and a cover with a carrying handle, so it's easy to put away after sewing or even to take it with you. I will go over safety tips when I show you the projects, but you may need an adult to help with this part. You will also need some straight pins or some clips. I prefer clips when sewing with kids. They are easier and safer for them to use. I have found that sometimes, even if they pin carefully, they may forget the pins are in their project when they transport it to the machine, or even lean on it when they go to sew. So these are a great thing for sewing with children. You will need to have a pin cushion. I like to keep my clips in a little dish like this. If you are using pins, you definitely need a pin cushion, and you want to be really good about putting them back so they don't wind up on the floor or anywhere else. You will want to have some washi tape or painter's tape handy. This is great for marking the seam allowance on your machine, which we will go over when we go to sew. You will need a ruler. You'll want to keep at least a basic ruler handy. If you are looking to make an investment in your sewing kit, a clear acrylic ruler is a wonderful tool to have. You will also need a point turner. You can use this to get into tight spaces and poke out corners. You can use an actual point turner like this, or a chopstick, or a knitting needle, or whatever you have on hand will work. It is good to have a soft tape measure if we need to measure something that is not straight, or if we need to measure around the body for fit or size. And these are the basics. These are what I use most in my classroom and the ones that I recommend for sewing with children. You can find most of these on my website, and you will see me using them in many of my projects. Please leave any questions below, and have fun starting and building your sewing kit.